This video will contain spoilers for Superman, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and don't want to know anything going in, I'd stop watching right now. With that spoiler warning out of the way, in today's video we are going to be talking about the Kryptonian message sent with Kal-El, and the various theories on what the message could mean, where it came from, and how it could affect the future of the newly rebooted DC universe. Early on in the movie, we are made aware of the message that was sent along with Kal-El in his journey to Earth, and we got our surprise cameo appearance from Bradley Cooper as Jor-El, giving us a very standard message to Kal-El from his parents. Krypton is minutes away from being destroyed, and they want their child to do the most good for humanity, along with a second part of the message that was initially believed to be damaged when he arrived on Earth. Once Lex Luthor is able to infiltrate the Fortress of Solitude along with the Engineer, where she is able to repair and decode the remainder of the message, and it says this: "The people of Earth are simple and profoundly confused, weak of mind, spirit, and body. Lord over them as the last son of Krypton. Dispatch of anyone unable or unwilling to serve you, Kal-El. Take as many wives as you can so your genes and Krypton's might and legacy will live on in this new frontier. Do us proud, our beloved son. Rule without mercy." And that part of the message has caused a lot of discourse online among Superman fans. This has never really been a part of prior Superman stories before, and a lot of people are making the obvious comparisons to Invincible, where Omni-Man's origin and power set is kind of a parallel to Superman, and it's also comparable to the James Gunn produced Brightburn, and there's a lot of discussion on the legitimacy of the message. In the movie, it is revealed that the message is in fact genuine, as confirmed by Mr. Terrific, but as I said, this doesn't really line up with the traditional portrayal of these characters. Now, there are other iterations where they do frame Kal-El being sent to Earth as a bit more nefarious, but it is normally a case of mistranslation or somebody butchering the message somewhere along the way. Now, the main theory I've been seeing a lot of people parrot is that the message was originally not sent from Jor-El. The big theory is that the message was sent by somebody like General Zod or Braniac, and that's why the message storyline wasn't wrapped up by the end of this movie. It's something they're saving for later on, and I could see the coming of General Zod or Braniac, either villain, would be a really interesting way to see Superman deal with his Kryptonian parentage, especially now under the assumption that he came to Earth to conquer. But I do have some hang-ups with the idea that this could be an alteration from Zod or Braniac. One thing I have to say is that I don't think we need to be seeing General Zod anytime soon. I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I don't really care to see these two characters fighting on the big screen once again. A big reason why I like James Gunn's take on Superman so much is that it feels completely different from every single past iteration while taking certain aspects from them. In the prior movie we had was centered on Superman fighting General Zod. I want to see a future Superman movie do something new, and to me, the Superman General Zod confrontation has just been very played out. But I've been hoping for Braniac to be the villain in a Superman movie since the sequel to Superman Returns was announced in the late 2000s. Obviously, that movie never came to be, and it was eventually rebooted into being Man of Steel, but Braniac is one of my favorite Superman villains, and somebody that I've always been really disappointed we've never seen on the big screen. But I could see how Braniac could tie into a future movie with the Kryptonian backstory coming into play. But it's also something that could be explored in next year's Supergirl. This all depends on where James Gunn wants to take his influence for the future of the DC universe. The thing is, DC is so open interpretation with so many different versions and iterations over the nearly 100 years of history that they really could do absolutely anything with the story, and it wouldn't be a total betrayal to the fandom. There are certain iterations where Braniac is responsible for Krypton's destruction, and in other iterations it's the Kryptonians' own negligence of the planet. But I have heard many people say if the message was some kind of mistranslation or misinterpretation, why doesn't Kara just provide the correct translation? If anybody would know that information, it would definitely be her. And I think that is something that they will be covering in Supergirl next year. This version of the character is going to be deeply traumatized. This is somebody who was there for Krypton before its destruction, and was responsible for looking after Kal-El. In some versions anyways. I believe this is the version we're going to be seeing in the DC universe because it is what most modern incarnations of Supergirl do follow. And when we meet the character at the end of Superman, James Gunn even himself said that this character is a bit of a mess. And we also know that the upcoming Supergirl movie is going to be adapting the 2021 storyline Woman of Tomorrow, which is a very intergalactic story that does kind of give us an idea of who exactly Supergirl is, and will follow her journey into becoming a more heroic character. It's possible that with this version of the character, she wasn't even aware of Jor-El's intentions with sending Kal-El to Earth. But I do want to cover my main theory, which is pretty simple compared to all the possibilities that I've seen people exploring online. I believe that the message is just being misinterpreted. Since the release of the first Superman teaser, I've started a rewatch of Smallville, something I haven't done in maybe like 10 years, and I forgot that a big part of the early seasons is Jor-El being at odds with Clark and Jonathan Kent. The consciousness of Jor-El in the early seasons of the show doesn't fully represent who that character was. It's a cold and calculating artificial entity that follows very specific directives, leading to Clark thinking that his purpose on being sent to Earth was in order to conquer, something very similar to the second half of the message we see in Superman. The message from that show describing humanity as being a flawed race where Superman will lead them with his strength. But let's look at that message again with a full context of Superman's backstory from prior comics, TV shows, and movies. The people there are simple and profoundly confused, weak of mind, spirit, and body, lord over the planet as the last son of Krypton. Kryptonian culture is typically depicted as a utopia, a planet that hasn't seen a war in quite a long time, which is typically what Jor-El is getting at with this part of the message for his son. Humans are in constant conflict with one another. Yes, they are confused by mind, body, and spirit. They need to see the strength that Superman has in order to unite all people. Let's continue on with the message. Dispatch of anyone unable or unwilling to serve you. Take as many wives as you can so your genes and Krypton's might and legacy will live on in this new frontier. Now, in the movie, it's interpreted as meaning, hey, get rid of humanity, Krypton will be reborn again on Earth, and you will be their leader. I think this was misinterpreted from an angle of protecting the people, not in repopulating Krypton to take over this new planet, but instead to make sure the legacy lives on in a more metaphorical sense, in a way of saying make sure the legacy and history of our people does not die with Krypton. Now, a lot of people have discussed how this could have been misinterpreted. Green Lantern's ring is meant to be a universal translator, Kara should have been able to understand the message no problem, and depending on the origin of Superman's robots, they should have been able to decipher the message correctly. Well, what I've seen is a big part of the inspiration of this version of Superman being very inspired by the Birthright storyline. This was a rebooted origin story for Superman, where Lex Luthor, similar to the movie, tries to create distrust among the public for Superman by implying that the Kryptonians are going to come and invade the Earth, and Superman is sent as kind of a scout. Now, I think there are all kinds of possibilities of what this message could end up meaning for the future of the DC universe, but I firmly believe that the most sound logic is the fact that the message was mistranslated or at least misunderstood. In Birthright, Superman is given a codex retelling the entire history of Krypton. However, because the language is dead, he can't understand what any of it means. But I think that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think the message means, how it could be resolved in the future, and any other kind of implications this could have for the DC universe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.